Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson. He's the star of the show, Joel Sherman. The Yankees have a great West Coast trip going 7-2, sweeping the San Francisco Giants, taking 2 out of 3 from the Angels since the last time we spoke. Joel, how you doing, man?
Good. I wish I was doing it as well as the Yankees because that would make me just feel great.
Well, everything about this team feels great right now. I mean, they're hitting on all cylinders right now, Joel, even though there's things that happen, injuries, things like that. But the lineup, we have to talk about that. But the performance of this team and the way it's been constructed, we've talked about philosophies and way that Cashman and crew have tried to assemble this thing and make this lineup long and difficult to face, right? So the question here for first pitch is, the way you're looking at this team and how it's been performing and the vibe around this team is what something we hear that Yankees talk about post-game. Aaron Judge, he talked about this is the most special team he's played on. So for you watching day in and day out for this Yankees team, I got to ask the question, is this the best constructed team the New York Yankees have had since that 2009 World Series team?
Well, if it's not, it's certainly on the short list and in the conversation. I think it's probably easy to forget over time. The 18 team won 100 games. The 19 team won 103. Those were good teams. And I would say that, I thought the Yankees made some mistakes last year based on the 2022 team. The 2022 team was 61-23. It was not that different where this team feels like it might be going record-wise. It was up by like 15 and a half games at the All-Star break. And I think what we didn't see, their pitching to some degree was a little bit like this one with Cole, though. They had everyone pitch well. Montgomery pitched well. Cortez pitched well. Domingo Germán pitched well. Jamison Taillon, I think, was still on that team, right? He pitched well. But the lineup was Judge. And the rest of it was like, there was some good Rizzo, there was some good LeMahieu, but it wasn't as 1-9 or at least 1-7, 8-ish as this lineup is. There was no Soto to the Judge. And the Soto has been transformative. He is everything the lineup could have hoped for. It's left-handed, it's tough at bats, it's clutch at bats. And if you just had him and Judge going round and round, that'd be pretty good. You got to get those guys out 10 times. The growth of Volpe is just a big story for the Yankees this year. That Verdugo consistently has good at bats. That Stanton is dangerous. Again, when the ball hits his bat, it's problematic for the other team. It feels like he has given up kind of like going deep into counts, walks and things, and said, I'm hunting what I can hit hard and trying to put an A swing on early in a count. And he's doing a lot of damage. Trevino has hit well, a little more like the All-Star from 2 years ago. I continue to wonder, it's a regular part of this conversation. I think there's a better hitter in Torres, and I think we're seeing a little of it.
Yes.
Where the at-bats have been better. I still think there's a better hitter in Austin Wells, and I'm fascinated if LeMahieu ultimately gives them something. But even if it got to 1-6 in the lineup at an incredibly high level, I think that makes it better than the 2022 team.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and you bring up a great point about that 1-6, 7. Even a guy like Anthony Rizzo, who hasn't had a great season this year to this point, he's struggling a little bit. But the guys around him, to your point, I mean, Verdugo, what a season he's already had so far. Gleyber Torres sparked that 9th inning rally yesterday to get them going with that single. For me, that lineup is so long, and there's no real weakness there. Maybe in the bottom of the order, but even to like LeMahieu, if he performs to that second half player he was last year, he could be a real threat at the bottom of that lineup. And Volpe, wow, what a way he's been playing. I mean, it's been. I had my doubts about him last year, but the talent's there. He's been incredible to watch this year. For you, and I think we talked about this last week with the Soto Judge, who's more, essential to the lineup. I mean, Joel, the Judge 2 home runs on Saturday, Soto 2 home runs yesterday. when's the last time maybe I'm being recency biased, but like Soto Judge is one of the deadliest combos in baseball I think I've seen in a while here.
Well, let's not forget, last year you had a situation where Acuna and Olsen finished 1-4 in the MVP, and Betts and Freeman finished 2-3 in the MVP. So those were pretty awesome. And by the way, Ohtani and Betts are playing in the same lineup this year. And I'm sure if we were doing a Dodger podcast, you might be very excited about that combination. But there's no doubt that what makes baseball fascinating and different from the other sports is it's our most democratic sport. In football, the quarterback on offense touches the ball on every play. If I want in basketball, Luka Doncic will touch the ball in every possession he's on. Juan Soto bats, and then he's got to wait for 8 other batters to bat, and then he bats again, and he might not get the ball or the bat in the biggest spot like he did yesterday, right? Then it's kind of magical for the Yankees that he does get the at bat at the right time. But when you start to put together great hitters, it's a little more like the other sports because, well, instead of having to retire a guy 4 or 5 times, you have to retire 2 guys 8 or 10 times of your 35-ish plate appearances. Well, what happens when Volpe becomes the guy? Now you're up to 15 plate appearances that are truly problematic, and the lineup is going to turn over. And the game is, man, the opponent is thinking we better get out the 8 and 9 hitters here, because if we keep turning this lineup over, especially if we put one of these guys on base, right? We saw the bottom of the Yankee lineup get on base to get Soto to bat, right? I think Torres singled, force out by Trevino, and then Volpe triples, I believe.
Correct.
And so you got the lineup back to the top with runners on, and Soto gets the 5th at bat, and it's a little more like the other sports when you start stacking good players in the lineup. It's why, if you're greedy, Yankee greedy, right? If Torres is last year's Torres, or LeMahieu is second half LeMahieu, or Rizzo is anything close to his prime, now think about what we're saying. Now we're up to 20, 22, 25 plate appearances where the other team is saying, where are the outs? How do we get through this? And I think that that's what great combinations do. We'll see it. The Dodgers were just in to play the Mets. I was at a game. They'll be in when I'm in London with the Mets. They're going to be in this weekend. It'll be fascinating, right? You'll have Judge Soto and you'll have Betts, Freeman, and Ohtani, and it will be, what they're hoping at MLB is that this is a preview of late October.
Correct.
They want these 2 markets in it. It's historic franchises that have played the most World Series against each other, albeit when one team was mainly in Brooklyn for most of the time. But I think it's going to be a fascinating weekend.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my follow-up there, Joel, is like this could be a little World Series preview here this weekend. And I know, like you said, MLB is definitely hoping for that with the 2 markets. And
can I throw something in? It will show you how tricky it is. Last year, you could not get better dynamic duos than Acuna, Olsen, and Betts and Freeman. That's the 1 through 4 in the MVP were 2 teams. Mm-hmm. Both of the teams were eliminated in the division series. Like the playoffs, I am not a crapshoot guy.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is the crapshoot,
where it's completely random, but it is have high levels of randomness to it. Is that if you have we'll see this. There's going to be a series this year where the Yankees play the White Sox or the A's and they lose the series, and you'll be like, how did that happen? And it's like, well, it's baseball. You just had a bad 3 days. Well, if you have a bad 3 days in October, your season's over. And I think it's very, very, for emotional fans, very difficult to take that in. In some ways, the Yankee dynasty, late 90s, early 2000, convinced a fan base that there is no randomness to it. And I'm like, well, there's less randomness if you give the ball to Rivera for the last 6 hours. There's less. If you're winning, you win. And if you have a couple of hitters who are completely fearless, and they had that. So I thought that the Dodgers and the Braves were the best teams last year, and they didn't get out of it.
Right.
Those will be discussions. I'm sure the Yankees are headed to October after what we've seen for 2+ months. But you really couldn't have had better dynamic duos than those teams had last year, and they didn't even win a round.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point by you, Joel, but I know, but the Yankees fans are just excited because this is the question I asked you originally, the best constructed roster since you've seen since 2009. It feels special, the way they're playing. But like to your point, everyone's clicking on all cylinders. The pitching's been great. The starting pitching's been great. The bullpen's been solid. So this brings me to Do Up, where I'm going to ask you three things here. And there's three things that happened to the Yankees this past week. So we saw the injury that happened to Clark Schmidt. We saw Tommy Kahnle finally make his regular season appearance for the Yankees, making their big league roster finally after being started off hurt. And DJ LeMahieu made his return to the lineup. Of those three things, how would you rank the importance of those three things? Like, what's impacted the team the most of those three things that happened to the Yankees this past week?
I think they all have a pretty good level of short and long-term importance. If I were ranking them, it would be Schmidt 1, Kahnle 2, and LeMahieu 3. Schmidt, you ultimately failed. I never 30 teams. I don't want to see guys get injured. I think I made this point last week. I'm enjoying the NBA playoffs less. And you know how much I love the NBA and the basketball is like I haven't seen all the best players play.
Right.
I always want to see the best players out there. Schmidt was having a breakout season. Last year was a breakout to prove sturdiness. And this year was a breakout where he was proving some level of excellence. And now he's going to miss a minimum of 2, and I think probably more than that, months. So we're talking about late in the season. And look, one of the conversations on this program week after week is I just kept saying, I was using my Joe Torre. I'm not making the decision about who's out of the rotation. When Cole comes back, I said the decision will be made for Aaron Boone. And the truth is, as you see how fragile it is, you're going to lose this player for 2 months. Well, what happens, even low level? Somebody hurts a hamstring now. Stroman hurts a hamstring. Rodon, takes a comebacker off a fan. You're lucky if you're the Yankees if you don't need a starting pitcher on July 30th. That's the fragility of it. And so while everyone was doing the hair pulling, like who's out, I'm like, trust me, they're praying they have to make that decision. Because you see it, it's like, okay, they're a really, really good team with a great support system around Cody Petit. So you can live with Cody Petit. Well, what happens if you have to live with Cody Petit and Yoandres Gomez?
Yeah.
Or, when they get healthy, Beater or Warren, and it's like, well, now it's 2 guys. What happens if it's third guy kind of situation? So to me, losing a player always feels, if I were running a team, more painful almost than getting one back. So that's why he's one. And personally feeling bad for a young player in a breakout situation. I picked Tommy Kahnle 2 because I do think, again, it's something we've talked about on this show a lot. I think their bullpen is ultimately an area they're going to have to address. And so anything that deepens it short and potentially long term, I don't have high level of trust in this pitcher, but Aaron Boone does. The administration of the Yankees does. And it's 4 outings. I think if you remember last year, he opened with 10, 15, 20 great outings before he began to buckle a little and then get injured. These 4 outings have been really good.
Yeah.
For him. He gives them a guy who could get lefty hitters out with his changeup. It's a small thing. I think a better version of Ian Hamilton has come back. He's looked good. So anything that kind of lengthens Holmes, Kahnle, Hamilton, because they're going to add. They're a really good team with a shot, and they're not going to add a bullpen arm or 2. But anything that gets them to July 30th and beyond, I think is important. And I listed LeMahieu last, not because he's unimportant, but because I just feel the pitching issues are more important, and they were certainly mucking through with Cabrera and Birdie before he got hurt in a competent way. Nevertheless, I do think LeMahieu is important. He is a very good defender at third base. He gives them the opportunity to get Rizzo off the field a little more regularly at first base. Does he get back to being the hitter he was in the second half last year? He's going to get a long rope. I think Aaron Boone, the clubhouse, let's stick with that. Aaron Boone and the clubhouse really believe in this player.
Right.
And I think that helps the overall headspace of the team. They're comfortable putting him on the field as he works his way back. What he works his way back to will again create a devilish situation between now and July 30th. If he's fine, maybe they don't have to address another bat. If he's not fine, they do. So that's why I say he's not unimportant. I would just say the other two players are more so.
I would say I would agree for the most part on your list. I mean, the only reason I'm a little hesitant with Schmidt at 1, I mean, while you're saying he is having a breakout season, is the rotation's been so damn good. Like everyone's performed to this point. But to your point, the Yankees have gotten the injury luck, right? They've had the luck for the first couple of months until now, hitting that rotation. So now you're really getting that test of, hey, Cody Petit, it's your chance. Go see what you can do. He throws 5 innings against the Giants, gives up 3 runs, but that's a solid outing from him. And now you got to hope and pray that before Gerrit Cole comes back, the rest of the rotation can stay somewhat healthy, right? The other 4 guys, when Gerrit Cole ultimately makes his return, you could have a really good starting 5 again. I mean, that's a luxury, obviously. I know that. I know I am lucky to watch what I am seeing right now, but that's the only reason I would say maybe Kahnle returning at 1 is the first thing that's most important, because that bullpen did need strikeout guys, and they do trust Kahnle to be a late inning guy for them, especially getting those lefties out. But I would agree, Joel. Those are the 3 things that are most important. If I were to rank those 3 things that this past week most important, I would agree.
Ryan, I would say I think if we had 5 heads of baseball operations you really respected in front of you, I think they would all put Schmidt 1, because they understand the fragility of the starting pitching. And while you never say relief pitching is easy to find, the Yankees, like Michael Tonkin, look terrible with the Mets. And whatever the Yankees do with relief pitching, he's come in and helped them for a period of time. Will he make it to the finish line? I would think probably not. But for now, he's helpful. I could replace, as the Yankees did, Tommy Kahnle much more easily than a starting pitcher, even with the concept that Gerrit Cole's coming back, because the starting pitcher can't be dispersed. I got 2 relievers not going, but I got 5 who are going well. So that could be dispersed. How I use them, I'll use the guys who aren't going well in low leverage until I kind of get them going again, fix them up. Oh, my third baseman isn't hitting, but 4 guys in the lineup are. If your starting pitching is problematic, you can't say, well, I have 2 starters going today, I'll just take the one who's not starting.
Fair enough.
And so, to me, as devilish as a decision might have been if all the guys were healthy when Cole came back, 30 out of 30 teams would say, let me make the decision, as opposed to having the decision made for me. Because the reality is the decision is almost always made for you because of the fragility of it all.
Fair enough, Joel. The one thing I did want to ask you in the follow-up for the Schmidt injury is, while we are waiting for that impending Cole to return, we don't know the Gerrit Cole we're going to get back. We're hoping it's Gerrit Cole close to the Cy Young. I don't think he's going to be Cy Young, but we're hoping it's Gerrit Cole that's coming back. That's an unknown. Do you think the Yankees are going to trade for a starter? Or are they going to stick with their depth in their organization to replace Schmidt if they don't like the way Petit's performing over the next couple of weeks?
I think they have enough cushion now in Cole coming back, and enough other potential concerns, that I think they're not doing anything until late July. They're not going to, unless something lines up so obviously to help them, where they'd say, okay, like, let's acquire this person now because we see him as somebody who helps us, and it doesn't take away from the pile of prospects we might consider trading in July for something more meaningful. I think they have to wait. Their starting pitching's been good. The 2 times we've seen Petit, he's been competent or better. You mentioned 5 innings and 3 runs. That's like, where do the Yankees sign up for 3 more of those and say, we got a good bullpen, we got a good offense, we'll work around it. He's our 6th starter. that's why I always say the problem becomes deeper than that. Once, if you have another injury, just on Cole, I will say something without having much knowledge, except for kind of pestering Cole whenever I see him at the ballpark and thinking that he's a very, very thoughtful guy. I wonder if he's trying to shorten the time from now until he comes back. He was very deliberate about what he did to now. And I got the sense talking to him a few times that he wants to hit the ground running with a rehab start. Not be like 1 inning or 2 innings, but maybe 3 innings or even 4 up and downs that first time out, 45, 50 pitches. And then the thing becomes, well, if the next one's 60 and the next one's 75, does he decide the 90 is in the major leagues instead of doing the 4th rehab or a 5th rehab? I think he's been very thoughtful and deliberate in how him and the Yankees have gone about this. I think he's listening to his body. And I'm deciding whether we should pivot, and I should say I'll just do it here, where instead of Joel's notebook, in '96, when David Cone had his aneurysm and missed 4 months, he was Gerrit Cole to that team. He was that important on and off the field. He was the clear ace of the '96 team, and he missed 4 months. It reminds me a little of this. The other starters who were around kind of like held the fort, but it was not as good as this. And Cone went to the minor leagues, and I think he made – people are going to be able to look this up, so I want to say I could be wrong. I know he made at least 1 rehab start. I think he then went to Bob Watson and Steinbrenner and everyone and said, I could make a second one, but there's only a certain amount of bullets I've got, and it doesn't – and their big lead in the division had fallen apart to the Orioles. And I think he said to them, essentially – I could do it in the minor leagues or I could help us win in the major leagues. Which would you rather do? And they said, well, then come up. If you think you're ready. And that was, I want to say it was only 1 rehab start. It might have been a second one. But I wonder, the Yankees are not in those desperate straits. Right. Cole is a valuable chip for them now, October, moving forward. So they're not going to rush him. But I wonder if at some point he says, if I'm ready, and we agree we're ready, let's not just follow a script that I'm supposed to do 4 or 5 rehab starts. Maybe my 4th start should be in the major leagues because I am built up to throw 90 pitches.
Yeah, it's interesting you pose it that way, Joel, because I think the Yankees respect Gerrit Cole so much and how, like you said, he listens to his body. And if he says he's ready, maybe this is the way I've seen it. I feel like Aaron Boone is kind of like, hey, man, if that's how you feel, and Brian Cashman's the same way, we're invested in you. If you say you're ready, we'll let you come up. You're ready to go. Go ahead, take the ball. Let's put you on the mound, because I don't think there's that. They won't pull that organizational card of saying like we have the upper hand over you. Like, no, let's we're okay. We're in first place. We don't need you right now. If he says he's ready, he's going to come up, and I think there's no doubt about that. They'll let him come up and make that start. So
there's some players. And I mean this in like a positive way. Like, I don't think the Yankees would let DJ LeMahieu short circuit a rehab anymore, because I think that he's hardwired to be, I'm fine, even if he's not. I think that Cole is so invested in his body, how he feels, the whole psychology around pitching and preserving himself long term, that if he told the Yankees, I feel like I have 90 major league pitches in me, and all of the testing that is done behind the scene on mobility, strength, etc., shows that the medical side of it matches his desire. I could see the 4th start being a major league start.
I mean, if they can get him back, I mean, it's going to be deadly.
Because then you're talking about, like, I think he's starting Tuesday. Tomorrow?
Correct.
Is that right? So,
Correct.
Like Tuesday, you could count that's then maybe 2.5, 3 weeks until his return. So we would be talking about late June. If he was a 4th, if the 4th start, and by the way, not that much further if he has to do the 4th start in the minor leagues. It's, add 5 days.
Right. And that if it's not even end of June, it's the first week in July, possibly, if he does go that 4th or 5th start. So listen, The Yankees just have to get through June, but at the same time, I can't just say just get through June because they've been the best team in baseball. So it's just a matter of, you know what, keep shoving out there, guys, keep doing your thing and see how it goes. Cody Petit, it's your chance. Go do your thing. Joel, let's do Radio Rational. We had talked about last night something else, but I want to throw it to you right now because I want to get this off my chest a little bit, and you might have a head scratcher. You might tell me I'm an idiot, which is fine. I understand. Aaron Judge, the performance he had in May, the greatest month I think I've seen in some time by some player. But the take I have here is Aaron Judge is the best New York Yankee player I have seen since the year 2000. So in the last 24 years, he is the best Yankee. I don't care. Derek Jeter was the best winner. You know, A-Rod was steroids and amazing player as well. Top, you know, he was one of the best, you know, young players coming out of baseball. I have never seen a guy like Aaron Judge where every time the ball hits his bat, it can go out just because of how it's so majestic in the way he approaches his at-bats and swings. The way he took over in May, I don't know. Like, Joel, he could break the home run record again. He's on pace to do something similar to that. And for me, maybe this is my Mickey Mantle growing up. This is a guy who just is every day can be an incredible force in that lineup. And you never know, like every at bat can be a home run. It's just so amazing to watch him every single day. And I think we all take for granted, maybe not you, because you've seen baseball longer than I have, but I think Yankees fans take for granted what Aaron Judge is doing right now for this Yankees team. That's my take. Radio Irrational.
Probably someplace in between because I think I can make an argument that Juan Soto is having a better year.
Interesting.
Juan Soto hasn't had 3 bad weeks. Right? I think part of, by the way, this is no knock on Judge. Would finish someplace in the top 4 for MVP right now in the American League. Any place from first to, you know, where's Soto, where's Witt, where's Gunnar
Henderson,
where's Kyle Tucker. Those are the 5 probably today. You know, shake it up, put it out however you want. Tucker probably suffer a little because the Astros are not a very good team right now, but he's special. Those are the 5 right now. One of them is his teammate, and his teammate didn't have the host of a webcast asking 3 weeks into the season, is there something wrong with them? Which is, I believe, a question I got asked a couple of times early in this webcast. And I do think my answer was that I was 0% concerned because it's been simple. In his prime, if Aaron Judge plays 140 games, he will be in the MVP conversation. Every year he's played 140 games. He's in the MVP. He's special. And so now the question is he more special than Soto this year? I don't know. Like, Soto hasn't had a slump yet. There's been no bad week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
A week, 2 weeks, I would agree. He's had like 3 or 4 games, but to your point, like there's no been extended slump like Judge had in the beginning of the year.
There's been no moment where you've been like, I wonder about Soto, kind of thing. So they've both been special. This is always history is a problem for baseball now. As somebody who has been a Hall of Fame voter for a long time and has to think about these things, I mean, A-Rod had a year where he like hit 56 homers and drove in 140 runs and had a bunch of walks. I mean, he had a spectacular. What do I think of that year? I don't know what to think about it anymore. But Judge is moving up the all-time ranks of great Yankees, and we know how you break into the next level. You know, he's right there probably historically with Mattingly now, as far as each one won MVP, each had about 6 or 7 great seasons. Judge has won some rounds in the playoffs. Mattingly never did that, but though Mattingly performed very well against Seattle, the only time he did it. You want to kind of get into the Mount Rushmore discussion at least. And that's a difficult discussion to get in. But, I mean, even if you want to start breaking into the top 5, 6, 7, 8 of all time, got to win championships here. And the one thing that's not great on Judge's resume, besides persistent health, is he's hit a lot of homers in October, but he hasn't struck out a lot. The batting average has been very low. The Astros in particular have been able to unplug him in October. He needs to have a big October or 2 and get a couple of championships.
Fair
or
enough.
at least one if he's going to be in that conversation.
And this is the year to do it, right? I mean, this is the year you got Soto. This is when you go all in, push all your chips into the middle of the table and say, let's go win the damn thing, right? So we'll see. I mean, I just, for me, the month of May, I mean, those numbers are insane that he put up.
But that's called recency bias.
Fine by me. I mean, he's dominated the sport the last 2 or 3 years. When he's healthy on the field, he's been the best hitter in baseball, in my opinion. But I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm biased. Let's bring in another biased Yankee fan, Tommy Hogan. Tommy!
Yep, another biased Yankee fan. Absolutely. That's a good way to intro me. Before I get started and piggyback off of this, I have some Judge and Heel May stats. Joel Cole made 2 starts in Double-A. Point still remains. But going off of that conversation, it did worry me a little bit talking about Gerrit Cole rushing him up a little bit. Now, I think the Yankees would listen to Cole and trust that he knows his body. But, I think the counter to you guys to that whole discussion would be the Yankees are 42-19. Why do they need a Gerrit Cole, 1 or 2 more Gerrit Cole starts than if they wait till maybe after the All-Star break or maybe wait till he's built up to 100 pitches? It just doesn't feel like they need to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's always an interesting verb that you use there, which was your decision, rush. I don't think that he would be rushed. Okay. This is a new pathway, not historically common injury. And I would say that part of what is being done here is a different way of rehabbing, which is that he has taken a lot more time before getting into rehab games than I think. We wouldn't say it was rushed if he had started rehab games 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, and he was up to 3 and he went all the way to 6. I think he, instead of being, I'll throw 20 pitches in a rehab game, he was, what can I do to lift more weight the first time I lift weights instead of starting with 50 pounds and going to 80 pounds and going to 120? He was like, well, why don't I start at 100? What's the work I have to do beforehand to get to 120? And now I'm going to start going.
Right. I guess the difference is you mentioned how the Yankees had lost their division lead to Baltimore, so that you need your ace to try to get that back, whereas the Yankees right now feel pretty good about themselves. They don't need –
this Baltimore team's closer to the Yankees than the Baltimore team was in 96. You want to win. And again, there is no rush here. That's a pejorative term that you've thrown out, Tommy. Okay. They're not going to rush him. And Gerrit Cole, who is personally as invested in a career as you can be and as a union man, is not going to let himself be rushed. This will be done with Gerrit Cole as the director of the program. If Gerrit Cole thinks he needs 7 starts, he'll do 7 starts. There is no script to all of this. We have historically said, well, this is the way to do it, and we know we're breaking all the rules over the last 20 years how we do things, and Gerrit Cole will not be rushed. Number 1, number 2, and up to a number 100 is Gerrit Cole will not allow himself to be rushed, and I think that the Yankees will follow him. And if he says he's ready, to your point, they have a great team. Why not let him make 20 rehab starts? Put him in bubble wrap. When he's ready, when athletes are ready, they need to play. And I think this athlete will not allow himself to be used until he's ready. That might be after 3 rehab starts. He might say he needs 3 more. You know what will happen then? He'll do 3 more.
Fair enough. Just something that was just my reaction hearing that he might come up a little earlier than we even expected.
But we needed a hot take.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well,
we were
another one coming. Trust me.
We needed a hot take. Got to start moving fast. Our boss is going to complain if it's over 30.
That's true. I do have to.
We're already over 30, Joel.
We'll piggyback off of what Ryan was.
Yourself, Tom. One stat. Let's go.
You're right. All right. The one stat we've heard a lot about Aaron Judge's stretch, his month of May, was his extra base hits. And he had the most extra base hits in a month by Yankee since Joe DiMaggio had 31 in July of 1937. Lou Gehrig had 29 in July of 1930. Now, Gehrig, he played 35 games in that July, so that one kind of skewed a little bit. But I want to then look into those 2 months and see how comparable was Judge's month overall, not just extra base hits, but to go along with everything else. DiMaggio in July of 1937, .430 batting average, .504 on base, 1.487 OPS. Judge had a .479 on base, 1.397 OPS. So DiMaggio a little bit higher. This also goes to Luis Gil, because Luis Gil had KD Sharp put out an unbelievable stat with Luis Gil, the first pitcher in Yankees history with 40-plus strikeouts and an ERA under .75 in the calendar month. There's a reasonable argument that we saw the best month from a Yankees pitcher ever and the best month from a Yankees hitter since those guys in the 1930s. So, Joel, I want to ask you, when you watched this last month from Aaron Judge, did it remind you of another stretch that you saw covering the Yankees or covering baseball that you have for the last 30 years or so?
I'm sure there's been unbelievable stretches. I remember there was maybe it was 93. Mattingly had a month that was like at the point in his decline, but he just decided to like kind of go for it with his back a little bit. He had an unbelievable month. It's a little before my time, but I would dare say in 78, Guidry had outrageous months pitching for the Yankees. So off the top of my head, I'm not sure that I could go month for month. And it's always like, months are man created, like May, just 30 days. Like, did anyone ever have a good mid-June to mid-July? It's another 30 days. So we've decided where we're punctuating the dates. I always have to be an asshole. And
Joey, this gets philosophical on us here. It's man-made dates.
Well, it's always like when people tell me like, oh, he has like 20 wins. And I go, right. But if we had 9 fingers, you'd care about 18 wins. Right? Like, that's why you care about 20 wins, is because it's the number of fingers. We have 5. We care about 5s and 10s. Right?
We have 10 fingers, not 20.
Right. But we're working in units of 5s and 10s.
Okay. Fine.
That's what he's getting
at. I could put hand puppets on here, like sock puppets, and slow it down for you.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The answer is, off the top of my head, I can't like define who had the best May in 2007, but I think it's fair to say that Luis Gil and Aaron Judge had spectacular Mays.
All right, now I do have another hot take. You mentioned the hot take earlier. It's more of a fan theory.
Some coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Get ready. Sit down for this one. The Yankees West Coast trip, we saw in the first at bat, Juan Soto takes in Anaheim. He hits a home run with his agent Scott Boras sitting right behind him admiring it. We also, if you rewind a few weeks earlier, we hear Hal Steinbrenner say he wants to have a conversation during the season. You, I'm sure, would have reported this if you had heard something. But the first thing that came to my mind was, is Hal Steinbrenner in Los Angeles, in Anaheim right now?
He wasn't.
Right.
Go.
Okay.
What's next?
That's all I wanted to hear. Was there a conversation? Well,
Boras is at every game in Anaheim.
I get that. He's got season tickets, but that's the time where you could get all 3 of them in a room without any of them
all get in a room. Juan Soto's going to be a free agent. I
agree with you, but Hal Steinbrenner wants to have a conversation. That feels like the time that he could have a conversation with the 3 of them all in the room together.
With a couple of supermodels, all of it's probably not happening. So it's
okay. Fan theory that I wanted to throw off of you, Joel. And there we go. Yeah. It didn't stick to the wall.
Was that deep? Was that on like dark web someplace?
No.
That Hal Steinbrenner like secretly went into LA?
That's Hoganalytics for you, Joel.
Right in my brain. That was my thought. You didn't think of that when you saw Scott Boras first at bat admiring Juan Soto's home run?
Not for 1 nanosecond, and hopefully I'll never think about it again.
That's a good thought. Come on. That's not crazy.
Pretty crazy.
Thank you for the biased Yankees fan take, Tommy. We appreciate you as always, bud.
I'll bring it every week.
I think they're having coffee today, Tommy.
You're welcome.
All right, Joel. Let's finish this up. Joel's notebook. I asked you before.
That's going right in my notebook. By the way, that theory. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, listen. I asked you about the West Coast trip. If there's anything that came to mind to you, but then you said you had something else with Darryl Strawberry. So I want to throw it to you. Obviously, Strawberry got his number retired from the Mets. So let's hear what you got, man.
Yeah, it felt more timely. Yankees will be on the West Coast again at some point. Talk about West Coast. So I wanted to talk about 2 things with Strawberry. Let me open with the one that's kind of like a little, at least, negative, is because I think it says something I'll give some insight into our business also, or at least what used to be our business. In 2000 in spring training, I don't know if people understand, there was then and there still is now with the hard copy of the New York Post, 3 editions of the paper. And you have to your copy has to be in by, say, roughly 7 o'clock at night for the first edition. If the quick understanding of what an edition is. An edition is like, think about how far a delivery system could go to deliver a paper. Like, you'd like to wait until all the news of the day is in, but then how do you print the paper, get it on a truck, and get it out to the furthest part of Westchester in New Jersey? That's why they get an earlier edition of the paper. So, because you got to print it, get it on a truck, get it out to the Jersey Shore. So you could wait longer for the edition that's mid-Manhattan than further away, the one that goes to Florida or California, etc. So the first edition of the paper is roughly 7 to 8 o'clock. And in spring training that year, I decide in 2000, I decide, this is the most bizarre Yankee camp I've been in. Nothing. It's so quiet. The year before, we had a Joe Torre's cancer scare with prostate cancer. Steinbrenner owns the team. There's always craziness. And I knew I was going to Met camp where there was crazy Bobby Valentine stuff that was percolating. And I said, what a switch. The Yankees are the quiet team in New York. I can't believe it. Wrote this whole column, Camp Happy. At about 6:45, we get an alert that Strawberry has been failed a drug test. And likely now is looking at a suspension that will end his career. And the meatball surgery that has to go into a column where I got like about 6 minutes now to fix the whole thing. In what previously was a quiet spring training, all of a sudden it's whole whatever. So that's just I remember I remember writing, when you write for the early editions of the paper, you're always trying to think of something that broadly can't be affected by new news. Like I would, I don't even know who starts for the Yankees. I'm at the game tomorrow night. Who starts? Is Hill the starter tomorrow night? Or
who went yesterday? It was Cortez yesterday, so it should be. I think
it doesn't matter. Let's say it's Hill, Rodon. Like, don't write who is it?
It's Hill.
Hill. Don't write about Hill, like how great he's doing for the early editions, because people who get the early edition will know what happened in the game, but they won't know that I don't know what happened in the game when I wrote it. And if Hill like gets hit by a line drive or gives up 11 runs, they're like, why did this guy write? He's so great. So you're always trying to think of the broadest thing to get into that, a concept, a trend, whatever. The other thing I would want to say about Strawberry is the Strawberry who did come to the Yankees filled an important role. And that included that there was still thunder in his bat. He helped them a lot in those years. I'm not, 96, 97, 98, kind of years. He helped. But him and the Yankees used to have like benches that were deep in these kind of sage veterans. Think about what Derek Jeter said about Tim Raines for a lot of years. And I thought Tim Raines in 96 especially, and then Chili Davis and Darryl Strawberry for the rest of that decade, 97, 98, 99, like they were kind of wise men, seen it all, had been stars at one point, and were willing to like sit on the sidelines. I thought they were influential to young players, especially in Jeter. Chili Davis, like, great, just great. Like, he was one of those guys. You ever hear somebody go, hey, I'm not to make excuses, but my ankle hurts. Like Chili Davis was, if you went up to him and said, you're kind of limping, he'd say, did I play today? And you go, yeah. He goes, I don't talk about injuries. If I play, expect that I'm supposed to play well. And if I don't play, I'm too hurt to play. He never did that bullshit. Hey, not to make any excuses. And I thought guys like that, and I thought Strawberry, there were days in the postseason, there was a postseason moment where he thought somebody needed to play more than him psychologically. And he went to Joe Torre, it might have been O'Neill, and said, you should play O'Neill today. You might lose him if you don't play him. And they had that ability. And I thought that those guys helped both on the field, because they still had stuff left, and they helped a dynasty off the field because it wasn't about more money or more fame. It was about winning and I'm saddened that in some way that the game, as it's gotten younger, that those kind of players I think are now pushed out of the game. And because I used to love to talk to those kind of players because they saw the game from 20,000 feet and they'd seen everything and they were smart about the game and about life. And yeah, so as I think about Darryl Strawberry, I think about sadness, right? Like even with his ultimate suspension in 2000 and all the problems he had before that, and obviously his cancer, terrible, that there was a Hall of Fame player that didn't happen. But it was still a pretty darn good career. And he had great value to champions on both sides of what I still call the Triborough Bridge. And it was really great. And I am personally, I like Darryl. So he was on the podcast last week with me and Heyman, and I was thrilled to see him have such a great day on Saturday.
Yep, absolutely, Joel. It's a great way of encompassing it all. And also you should check out the show, listen to that conversation John and Joel had with Darryl Strawberry. Joel, this is another great episode. We had some hot takes. We had some Tommy giving us some biased stuff. I gave you some biased takes, but we appreciate you as always, just giving us some time talking Yankees baseball. You're off to London, so we're going to miss you next week. But then after that, we'll come back, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about with the Yankees. Appreciate you as always, man.
Yeah, we'll have 2 weeks of hot takes. I can't wait to discuss them.
Thanks, Joel.
Maybe Hal Steinbrenner will fly you to wherever Juan, Soto, and Scott Boras are.
Tommy's hoping. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah.